This is nuts. This is Tucker Carlson. You know, you want to get a notion of what Tucker Carlson's going for in terms of like what his next step in his career is going to be. And it does feel, doesn't it, Bradley? And we're going to play clip number 8, just so that you know. But it does feel like he put his plans to do his Twitter X show on hold. Is he doing it regularly now or no?
I gotta check, but I think, if I'm not mistaken, the Orban interview and the
Trump interview.
Yeah, well, I believe those were still both Tucker now. I guess Tucker on X now. Obviously, it's not Tucker on Twitter anymore. But I gotta check if he's still doing it as consistently. But he's the relevancy. I think, as you've said, Sam, you're absolutely right. Like, it was the time slot, not him.
Well, it was both, and it wasn't even necessarily the time slot as much as it was that he's saying this stuff on a cable television show. Like, I could say, you know, the same commentary I give here doesn't have the same weight because I'm not saying it on cable television, even regardless of what the numbers are. But the fact that I'm doing there, you know, would attract more numbers. So just to give you a sense of like where he thinks he has to go with his show, here is Tucker Carlson on Adam Carolla's show. That part is not surprising. But here is Tucker Carlson providing some history lessons.
You know, everybody I knew, the world I lived in Northwest DC, like everyone works either directly for the government or is a parasite on government effectively, including people I love and know really well. And the media is too, by the way. I mean, the media is reporting on government, but it's also dependent on government. You know, in 2008, it became really clear that Barack Obama had been having sex with men and smoking crack. And a guy came forward, Larry Sinclair, and said, I'll sign an affidavit. And he did. I'll take a lie detector. And he did. I smoked crack with Barack Obama and had sex with him. Well, that was obviously true. Nobody reported it, not because they were squeamish about sex or drugs, but because the Obama campaign said anyone who reports on this gets no access to the Obama campaign. And so they didn't report on it. So that happens. That's just one small example, but that happens all the time with lots of different issues.
Now,
and
do you believe that transpired, or do you believe the guy is legitimate, or both?
Oh, the Larry Sinclair story? Oh, that definitely happened. Oh, for sure. I mean, I've talked to Larry Sinclair about it.
This is awesome.
And,
pause it for 1 second.
Pause it for 1 second.
Pause it 1 second. This is my favorite part here. He says, "Oh no, absolutely, it definitely happened." What he's not telling you, he's going to tell all the other aspects of why this Larry Sinclair may not be considered the best source for this. He'll go on to talk about some of that, but the truth is he was invited to, he did sign an affidavit, and he was offered $100,000 if he could pass a polygraph test from a website. He took them up on it, and the polygraph organizers said his results indicated deception. And then the guy said, well, the polygraph sponsors were bribed to say that I failed. I think he said like they were bribed like $700,000 to fail. You know, the thing is, this stuff tends to come out a little bit as Donald Trump understands, right? I mean, he tried to silence one of his critics. Presumably there would have been other people, but listen to Tucker Carlson explain all the reasons why this is a dubious claim and then say, but no, it's totally true.
Believe the guy is legitimate, or both?
Oh, the Larry Sinclair story? Oh, that definitely happened. Oh, for sure. I mean, I've talked to Larry Sinclair about it, and definitely it happened. I mean, Larry Sinclair's been in and out of prison during one period. I mean, 40 years ago, he was in and out of prison. He's got a criminal record by definition. He's, poor. He's got a disordered life. He's missing a tooth. Like, he's not, an Atlantic fellow. He's not going to the Aspen Ideas Festival. I think he has a record of deception. Obviously he does. But this story, if you listen to it in detail, is clearly true. I mean, I'm going to do an interview with him and you can hear it. And again, it's not going to change the world that Barack Obama likes dudes. I think this was well known. Barack Obama said so himself in a letter to his girlfriend. And by the way, that's kind of Barack Obama's business. I'm not attacking him for liking dudes. I'm just saying the amount of lying in the media about it was unbelievable. Like, people knew this was true, and it was quite obviously true at the time. And people who covered the campaign didn't say anything about it because they didn't want to lose access to the campaign. And that happens all the time up and down government. So it's almost like if you have a housekeeper, you think, she works for me. But if you have a housekeeper long enough, you realize, well, you actually work for her. And you get caught up in her dramas. Do you know what I mean? Like, yeah. There's a weird dynamic where you switch places with people.
And by the way, fire her abruptly and she'll write a tell-all book about Tucker at home.
That's exactly right. And, we don't even have a full-time housekeeper. So, that's not going to be an issue for me. But the point is, you think you're holding government accountable, but actually they're controlling you. That's really
I just love that. We don't need to hear any more of this. I love that. And of course they do. Of course they do. I mean, if they don't have a full-time housekeeper, it's only because they switch so many houses. They have so many houses in which they live in that they don't need it while they're not there.
Oh, I'm a populist. I would never hire a housekeeper.
But I love like how both of these guys immediately feel like they're victims because they have housekeepers. There's nothing worse than having the housekeeper and having to talk to them like they're a human being. That is like, you know what I mean?
And share details about your life and vice versa. That's horror.
Where they trapped in, and then like if you fire them, they're going to write a book and a tell-all thing about all the horrible things they had to put up with you. Daredevil. I smoked crack and had gay sex with both Adam Carolla and Tucker Carlson at the same time. I'll sign an affidavit. They even told me they enjoyed it while on a lie detector. Cogman, sounds like Tucker's Alex Jonesing. Yes, that is exactly my point. That's where you start to go. That's where Tucker's... Understand, there is nothing Tucker will not do to maintain his celebrity or to achieve some measure of celebrity or fame. The guy went on Dancing with Stars when he had no other options as a way of reviving his career. He launched a website, I guess it was like in 2006, he even went to CPAC and said, conservatives don't believe in journalism. We're going to start a real sort of like journalistic heavy website, which ultimately ended up being, was it the Daily Wire? No, it was the
Daily Caller.
The Daily Caller, which ended up like doing Swedish, models stories essentially. And then conspiracy theory stuff. There's nothing he won't do. And so he's giving you a sense of where he's at. Here's another example of what Tucker's willing to do. This is from a week ago. Tucker Carlson has visited Hungary, I think, multiple times over the past couple of years. Platformed Viktor Orban or featured him on his show, which, I guess you don't want to begrudge a fasci right-winger the opportunity to see one of his fasci right-winger heroes. But he's neglected, as far as I know, every time to mention the fact that his father is basically a lobbyist for Hungary and has done lobbying work for them. So it's a twofer, I guess. I don't know. I guess it might be hard to talk about the absolute corruption associated with Hunter Biden trading off his name. We should say, incidentally, that Tucker's dad, if he wasn't in the CIA, he suggested Tucker go in the CIA. I think they rejected him. And so at one point, the guy was just like, well, go into journalism. They'll take anybody. And his father ran the Public Broadcasting Corporation, I think right around the time before he got his PBS show. His dad's been doing that for him for a long time.
He was the director of the Voice of America for the last 6 years of the Cold War.
Oh, Voice of America. That's what it was. Here is Tucker Carlson, though, addressing the MCC Fezit. What is that? It's a festival, I guess, in Budapest.
Yeah.
And here you go.
This is not a power that's exporting something ugly to the rest of the world. This is a country concerned with its own safety and prosperity. That's, in the words you used to hear a lot in the United States, a country that is minding its own business. And so even if you disagree, which for the record I do not, but even if I did, and I ran the State Department, I would say, let's take a pass on Hungary. We've got bigger problems. But they can't. They hate Hungary. And they hate it not because of what it's done, but because of what it is. It's a Christian country, and they hate that. And that's the truth. And nobody wants to say it, but it's true. And it's not a particularly provocative Christian country. I don't think most Hungarians go to church. It's not a theocracy. You're not required to believe in the catechism to live here. It's nothing like that. It's a soft Christian country, the softest ever. 300 years ago, people would look at modern Hungary and say, that's not a Christian country. But by modern standards, it's one of the last countries that identifies as a nation built on Christian precepts. Again, not imposing them on anyone else. But that is enough to incite our policymakers in the United States. And that is exactly why they hate Russia, by the way. I'm not a fan of Russia. And if I was, I wouldn't admit it to a Hungarian audience. When I hear Orban described as a Putin suck-up, I think, really? That image of Orban being pushed against a police car with a baton to his neck by Soviet-backed policemen comes to mind. Yeah, he's probably not pro-Russian, just guessing. But why do they make that charge? Well, because one thing that Russia and Hungary have in common is a big part of the population identify as Christians. Now, why would that be provocative? A huge part of Malaysians identify as Muslim. Fine with me. But it's not fine with Washington at all. It's deeply offensive to see that alive in Europe. And that is the core. It's not rational. This is happening on a gut level, but it is expressed through policy. Policies that I'm ashamed of that most Americans don't even know exist. The fact that Americans working in Hungary have to pay Hungarian and American taxes, one of the few countries in the world where that's true, that's punitive, that's punishment. And it's punishment for your constitution and for your attitudes. That is cultural imperialism. That's what we used to call it. The idea that the bigger country gets to impose its way of life on smaller countries, not convince them to adopt our way of life, not convince them to drink Coca-Cola because it tastes great, but force them. Convert or die. That was repugnant to Americans. That was the opposite of the American promise, which was this is all voluntary. Come to our side because you want to. We've got something better to offer you. We're not going to force you. We want you to come under your own free will. And that's no longer true.
The amazing thing is that if Americans have to pay tax in both Hungary and in America for work done in Hungary, that's a function of Hungarian tax laws. Because my understanding is that if you are a U.S. citizen, at the least, you pay income tax to the U.S. government regardless of where you made that money. It may be the case that if you're working in that other country, that other country says you don't have to pay taxes here because of that. I don't know. But my understanding has always been that if you're a U.S. citizen and you're making taxes, you're making money abroad, you need to pay taxes at home if you're still a U.S. citizen. So he's probably making that up. But just the idea that like he's the aggrievement. The reason why America hates Hungary, which I don't, maybe people in the State Department, I don't think they hate Hungary. They have problems with its sort of anti-democratic nature. Not because it's a Christian country. I don't think there was, I think to the extent that there was any Russia issues, like Russia has gotten more Christian in the past, 8 years. I think the big issue with Russia was their involvement with the election, both stuff that we've heard of broadly, and also it's, I think, what we know. But I don't even think it was like the reason why we have a Ukraine war now is because Russia invaded. That's the but for there. But this is, I don't know, this is the way he gets his interview with Orban, right? Call that a beet sweetener?
Yeah, it's similar. It seems like there's some cause and effect stuff, right? Like Tucker scores the interview with Trump. Trump does his first Twitter post in 2 years right after. Tucker does the Mest Fest or whatever that is in Budapest, and then next week gets his interview with Orban. It seems like there's a lot of transactional nature
without a doubt
the booking.
Without a doubt. You know what? I'm going to turn on the phones. Maybe we'll take a couple of calls. See if we can get this going here. That sound signifies that the phones are open, and there I am. Antifa Lockhart. The reason why the U.S. didn't align with Hungary is because we're so close with Turkey. Who goes hungry after a turkey? U.S. citizens don't have to pay taxes income earned abroad if they are living outside the U.S. unless it's over a certain threshold that's in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. Tucker's upset that rich people have to pay taxes no matter where they run off to. Says Professor Soy Boy. Hogtown frown. A few countries like Canada and U.S. have a tax treaty where if you work in those countries, you only pay tax in those countries. But you do need to file with the home tax authority. My buddy is a dual citizen but lived his whole life in Canada. Still needed to file with the IRS but didn't pay taxes. Although Hack All Things says your understanding of living abroad of being a U.S. citizen and having to pay taxes to the U.S. Fed is correct.